The wedding ceremony was held at the rabbi's temple, and the reception afterwards in the ballroom of the Essex House, Newark's most luxurious hotel. The notables who attended, each accompanied by a wife or a husband, were listed inside a box separate from the wedding story itself and directly beside photographs of the bride and groom that appeared in the New York Sunday Call. The list was surprisingly long and impressive, and I present it here to explain why I, for one, had to wonder if my parents and their metropolitan friends weren't completely out of touch with reality to imagine that any harm could befall them because of a government program being administered by a luminary of the status of Rabbi Bengelsdorf. To begin with, there were Jews in abundance at the wedding ceremony, among them family and friends, congregants from Rabbi Bengelsdorf's temple, admirers and colleagues from around New Jersey, and others who had traveled from all over the country to be present. And many Christians were there as well, and according to the article in the Sunday Call, which took up 1.5 of the 2 society pages that day, among the several invited guests who were unable to attend, but who sent their best wishes through Western Union, was the wife of the president, the First Lady, Anne Morrow Lindbergh, identified as a close friend of the rabbis, a fellow New Jerseyite and a fellow poet, with whom she shared cultural and intellectual interests, and met frequently over afternoon tea for a White House tete-a-tete to discuss philosophy, literature, religion, and ethics. Representing the city were the 2 highest-ranking Jews ever in Newark's government, the 2-term ex-mayor, Mayor Ellenstein, and the city clerk, Harry S. Reichenstein, and 5 of the slew of Irishmen currently most prominent in the city: the Director of Public Safety, the Director of the Department of Revenue and Finance, the Director of Parks and Public Property, the city's Chief Engineer, and the Corporation Council. Newark's federal postmaster was there, and the head librarian of the Newark Public Library, as well as the president of the library's Board of Trustees. Among the distinguished educators attending the wedding were the president of the University of Newark, the president of the Newark College of Engineering, the superintendent of schools, and the headmaster of St. Benedict's Prep, and an array of distinguished clergymen, Protestant, Catholic, and Jewish, were also among those present. From the First Baptists Petty Memorial Church, the city's largest Negro congregation, there was Reverend George E. Dawkins. From Trinity Cathedral, Reverend Arthur Dumper. From Grace Episcopal Church, Reverend Charles L. Gompf. From St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Church on High Street, Reverend George E. Spyridakis. And from St. Patrick's Cathedral, the Very Reverend John Delaney. Absent, and glaringly so to my parents, though nowhere alluded to in the newspaper story, was Rabbi Bengelsdorf's antagonist and the foremost of Newark's rabbis, Joachim Prince of Congregation B'nai Abraham. Before Rabbi Bengelsdorf's rise to national prominence, Rabbi Prince's authority among Jews throughout the city and the wider Jewish community and among scholars and theologians of every religion had far exceeded his elder colleagues. And it was he alone of the conservative rabbis leading the city's 3 wealthiest congregations who had never flinched in his opposition to Lindbergh. The other 2, Charles I. Hoffman of Oheb Shalom and Solomon Foster of B'nai Jerusalem, were in attendance, however, and Rabbi Foster presided over the wedding ceremony. Present as well were the president of Newark's 4 major banks, the presidents of 2 of its largest insurance companies, the president of its biggest architecture firm, the 2 founding partners of its most prestigious law firm, the president of the Newark Athletic Club, the owner of 3 big downtown movie houses, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, the president of New Jersey Bell Telephone, the editors-in-chief of 2 daily papers, and the president of P. Ballantyne, Newark's most famous brewery. From the Essex County government, there was the supervisor of the Board of Freeholders and 3 members of the board, and from the New Jersey Judiciary were the Vice Chancellor of the Court of Chancery and an Associate Justice from the State Supreme Court. From the State Assembly, there was the Majority Speaker, and 3 of the 4 Assemblymen from Essex County. From the State Senate, a representative from Essex County. The ranking state official was a Jew, Attorney General David T. Willents, who had successfully led the prosecution of Bruno Hauptmann, but the state official whose presence most impressed me was Abe J. Green, another Jew, but more importantly, New Jersey's boxing commissioner. One of Jersey's 2 U.S. senators was there, the Republican W. Warren Barber, as was our Congressman, Robert W. Keene. From the District Court of the United States for the District of New Jersey, there was a circuit judge, 2 district judges, and a district attorney, whose name I recognize from listening to Gangbusters, John J. Quinn. A number of close associates of the rabbi at the national headquarters of the OAA and several officials representing the Department of the Interior had come up from Washington, and though there was nobody at the wedding from the very highest echelons of the federal government, there was an eloquent proxy representing no less a personage than the president himself, the telegram from the First Lady that was read aloud by Rabbi Foster at the reception, after which, reading, the guests rose spontaneously to applaud the First Lady's sentiments, and were then asked by the groom to remain standing and join with him and his bride in singing the national anthem. The lengthy text of the telegram was carried in full by the Saturday call. It went as follows. My dear Rabbi Bengelsdorf and Evelyn, my husband and I send you our heartfelt best wishes, and we join in wishing you the most blissful happiness. We were delighted to have an opportunity to meet Evelyn at the White House State Dinner for the German Foreign Minister. She is an enchanting, energetic young woman, clearly a most worthy and upright person, and it took no more than the few moments I spent chatting with her for me to recognize the gifts of personality and intellect that won her the devotion of a man as extraordinary as Lionel Bengelsdorf. I recall today the splendidly succinct lines of poetry my meeting with Evelyn brought to mind that evening. The poet is Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and the words with which she begins the 14th of her Sonnets from the Portuguese embodied just such womanly wisdom as I saw emanating from Evelyn's astonishingly dark and beautiful eyes. If thou must love me, wrote Mrs. Browning, let it be for naught, except for love's sake only. Rabbi Bengelsdorf, you have been more than a friend since we met here at in the White House after the ceremony establishing the Office of American Absorption. Since your moving to Washington to become the OAA director, you have been an invaluable member. Our engrossing conversations, along with the enlightening books you have generously given me to read, have taught me much, not just about the Jewish faith, but about the traditions of the Jewish people and the sources of the great spiritual strength, which have been the mainspring of their survival for 3,000 years. I am all the richer for having discovered, through you, how powerful, how profoundly rooted my own religious heritage is to yours. Our greatest mission as Americans is to live in harmony and brotherhood as a united people. I know from the excellent work you are both doing for the OAA how dedicated the two of you are to helping us achieve this precious goal. Of the many blessings bestowed upon our nation by God, none is more valuable than our having among its citizens like yourself, proud, vital champions of an indomitable race whose ancient concepts of justice and freedom have sustained our American democracy since 1776. With every best wish, Anne Morrow Lindbergh. And there we will pause.